Hopes are high ahead of the investment conference that will be held at the Sandton Convention Centre later this month. But some uncertainty around South Africa's ability to bring in the money remains. The investment conference, of course, first announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address earlier this year. It forms part of a drive to mobilise more than R1 trillion in new investments over the next 5 years. In the run-up to the conference, President Ramaphosa appointed 4 special envoys to engage investors. Former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas, Chair of Afropulse Group Phumzile Langeni, and former Standard Bank CEO Jacko Maree. And Jacko Maree joins us in studio right now. Thank you for being with us. Take us back to that call you received from the President.
Well, it happened on a Saturday night, and I met him on Sunday morning, and he said, would I be prepared to help? And I think, so many of us were so positive about the changes of December. And as a retired businessman, I just was happy to step up to the plate and make my contribution.
Did he tell you then that you'll be asked to help raise a cool R1 trillion?
Well, $100 billion to be precise, which is it's an
1.2 trillion, basically.
$100 billion. Yeah. It's really quite an amazing number. Look, it's great to have a target. We have to have a target. We have to have something to work towards. And I think it's good to have a big, audacious goal out there.
Yeah. Is it a real target, though, or just something, we're aiming for that, but we know we won't get there?
No, I think that these things are realistic. I think back to the investment by the biggest Chinese bank into Standard Bank when I was chief executive. That was a $5 billion investment. So $100 billion over 5 years is not that extreme.
How are you feeling? So you said there was optimism then. What about now?
It's, I think, clear to all of us as we know that the sort of the Ramaphosa days have died down, and we're now busy with the harsh realities of the issues of our country. But I think so many positive things have been done, particularly in the political domain. In terms of tackling corruption and making some of the necessary changes. These are all good things. But finally, investment is likely to result from good policy decisions and creating the right environment within investment can take place.
Yeah. Well, there was the Ramaphosa and Cyril Ramaphosa was seen as the investor-friendly candidate in December, but thereafter the ANC decided to support expropriation without compensation. Has that brought in uncertainty, regardless of what you think of it? It's uncertain again.
Of course. I think there are many things that we all know need to be clarified. We're busy with the mining charter. It seems to clarify that. We had to clarify things around the allocation of broadband spectrum, and of course expropriation without compensation is a complex thing to talk to investors, both domestic and foreign, about. But
is this what they ask you about all the time?
It's one of the issues, but having said that, if you're about to build a factory, I don't think there are many people who are particularly concerned that their factory is going to be expropriated. But of course, if you're in the agricultural business or agro-processing, it's much closer to home.
How does this work? The idea was that these envoys would sort of fan out around the world. Have you actually taken trips? Have you spoken to investors? And what's the sort of feedback you're getting?
Well, can I just say that we're trying to raise half the money domestically. Fortunately, South African companies, the big companies, are pretty strong and therefore should be able to contribute at least half of the money that we're looking for. Then we're also talking to foreigners. And the foreign investors, mostly the ones that we're talking to at this stage, already have some presence or some interest in South Africa. We're not talking to brand new investors. So you saw Mercedes-Benz expanding its plant. That is good because that's investment, it's capital expenditure, but it's much easier to talk to foreign companies about expanding than brand new investment at this stage.
So when it comes to local investors, what's your take? There's been a debate. Is there or is there not an investment strike at the moment?
I don't think so at all. Business, I think it's a misapprehension. Business will always invest if there's an opportunity to make money. I mean, that's the nature of business. So business is looking for opportunities. And I think a lot of companies have perhaps been investing more outside of South Africa on the African continent. The bank that I'm associated with, or was associated with, Standard Bank, has grown rapidly elsewhere on the continent because it saw more opportunities there. We have to make sure that South Africa is seen to be a place where there really are opportunities to grow.
Yeah, I spoke recently to a construction firm who says they're surviving because they went global and they didn't focus on the local market. You ran a business. Are you sympathetic to the South African businesses that are holding back right now investing in this country?
I don't think it's a question of holding back. I think everybody, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a small business entrepreneur, whether you're running a big company, if the environment is positive and there's good sentiment, people tend to spend. Companies tend to spend, individuals tend to spend, and when companies spend, it's normally on things that will create jobs. I mean, when you invest, with the investment, if you build a factory, of course there'll be jobs that go with it. So it's the growth that comes first, which is fueled by investment, and the jobs will hopefully follow thereafter.
But now we talk about you trying to advocate for this country when we don't have that growth. I mean, are you in a very difficult position right now?
We have to create the growth. I think that the real question is, how do we get the flywheel of growth turning? We've had the political dividend. We now need to get the flywheel going. The government can't really do it because of its constrained financial position. The state-owned enterprises can't do it because of their constrained position. We can't have a consumer boom because of it. That would be irresponsible to lower interest rates or something like that. So the only weapon we've got is investment, and it's private sector investment, both domestic private sector investment and foreign direct investment.
All right, so this investment conference now, so we're heading towards this at the end of the month. Would you say it's just the beginning of the investment drive or the culmination of efforts thus far? How would you pin this conference down?
Well, if we remember that this is a 5-year task that we've signed up for and a 5-year commitment to get the $100 billion, then this conference is happening 6 or 7 months after it was announced. So it's a step in the road, but I think a very important step in the road, because what it's going to do is bring together a lot of local businesses and also a lot of foreign businesses that have an interest in South Africa, and of course also asset managers, people that have got funds to invest other than businesses. So I think by having a conference, getting everyone together, getting constructive debates going around focused areas, not a general talk shop, but focused debates about specific sectors and industries, and hearing what's worked and what hasn't worked, I think it'll be a great step along the road, but it's only the beginning.
Is everybody signed up already, or you being here, is this part of the efforts to sort of get everybody on board?
Oh no, I think a huge amount of work's gone to identify, to specifically target people. We are looking for people that can invest hundreds of millions of rand at a time. So that sort of defines
with a stall showing their
your
goods,
universe.
Yeah.
No, this is big investment. If you're trying to raise $100 billion or more than R1 trillion, you have got to find the big money.
Yeah, and you said engagement, so I think it was touted that this would be an information exchange on one hand, a way for these investors just to meet government officials as well. Tell us more about the activity over those 3 days.
Well, once people are together in a forum and once everyone's got name badges and ability to contact other people, it's also a great networking opportunity. So typically what you find at conferences like this is that people who have a particular interest in a sector will seek out other people, and we will organize or make sure that there are forums for people who are interested in energy. There'll be an energy forum and a discussion. A relevant minister will be there, and people with that interest will be able to get together, exchange cards, talk about things. But many of them, of course, know each other already, and I'm sure there will be frank discussion with government in terms of things that perhaps are not conducive to investment.
And how do we make it different? So we're saying South Africa is open for business. I remember former President Zuma saying that frequently. How do we really make it that this is different, this time is different?
It's so easy to say that statement, we're open for business, and I heard Zimbabwe saying that recently too. At the end of the day, if you think about foreign investors, they can choose where to invest. They can invest anywhere in the world. Why would they come to South Africa? They're going to come to South Africa because they feel they can earn a good return on their capital and that their investments will be safe. So we have to create an environment in which investors, companies can make money, be sure that their assets will be protected, know that there's a rule of law to protect their contracts and so forth. You have to make it easy for people to do business. That means taking away red tape and so on. And much of that you saw being announced in the stimulus package 2 weeks ago by the President.
So what I hear you saying is we're getting to a place where at least policy and law sort of backs up the slogans that we're using, finally.
Well, I think we are very blessed that we have a number of these things in place already. We have a great constitution, our courts function contractually, you can enforce contracts, the financial system is strong, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, so we have many things that are attractive to foreign investors. But finally, if you're making product, you want to sell a lot of those products, and so therefore you're looking for the right opportunities. If you're going to mine, you're comparing your mining opportunity here with the mining opportunity in Brazil. And so if we make the conditions too onerous about getting mining licenses here, people will go to Brazil. It's as simple as that.
The presidency released some figures, and it sounds so awful. So investment fell from 76 billion rand in 2008. Fast forward 10 years, or so, 18 billion last year. So that's just now a shadow of what it formerly was. Looking back, what went wrong?
Look,
and how do we fix it?
I think we all have a sense that the last 10 years, in particular the last 5 years, have been very difficult years for our country, because many of the things that I've just been talking about in terms of policies and so on were not the focus of government. There were other focuses. So I think we had our eye off the ball. Of course, you've had a global financial crisis along the way, which has made it more difficult. But we've really shot ourselves in the foot in a number of areas, and I think the President has spoken quite openly about that. And we are on the move. We are moving in the right direction. You saw some really critical announcements from the President, making visas easier. Not only tourist visas, but people that need to work here. Foreign companies that have to have their people working here. You can't expect them to have to travel back to their home country for a month to go and sit and wait for a visa. Stupid things like that.
Is there anything in finality you'd still like to see that, when you have the President's ear, you're going to push it?
All we're talking about is creating good policies, and I think the government is well aware of what the policies are that are required, and giving investors certainty. They want certainty and continuity. If you're building a factory, you need to know where you stand for the next 10 years, not for the next 1 year. And we can't keep changing the rules and making it difficult in that way. It needs to be certain, and it needs to be clear for a reasonable period of time. All
right. Well, thank you for your time this evening, and we'll follow developments in the run-up to that investment conference, and we will follow that investment conference 25th to the 27th of October, being held at the Sandton Convention Centre. Big hopes, because remember, this is part of the drive to raise that $100 billion, more than R1 trillion. That was Special Envoy on Investment to the President of South Africa, Jacko Maree.